The beginning of every story has an end. And for Tyler Jerell, an 18-year-old eager to serve his country and start a life with his girlfriend, that end was cruelly abrupt. Eager for a day of fun and exhilaration, Tyler boarded the Fireball, a thrill ride that swung its passengers like a pendulum while spinning them in the air. But this was no ordinary ride. This was a descent into a tragedy that would seal his fate. In a horrific turn of events on that ill-fated day, the ride malfunctioned. The gondola in which Tyler sat detached mid-swing, sending him and 7 other passengers airborne. They were flung from their seats, their dreams momentarily derailed but not extinguished. Tyler, however, would never leave the park. But what chills the bone is this. The ride had passed safety inspections mere hours before, so how was it possible for the malfunction to occur? Was it really an accident, or was it something even more sinister? Did we place our trust too readily in carnival operators who assure us their attractions are harmless fun? And the haunting question that lingers, what really happened? Prepare yourself, because what you're about to discover is not just a story of malfunctioning machinery, but a cautionary tale of overlooked details that cost an 18-year-old his life. Today, we tell the story of Tyler Jerell and the Ohio State Fair Fireball accident. As we dig deeper into this haunting tale, it's important to know where it all happened: the Ohio State Fair. This big yearly event isn't just another date on Ohio's calendar. It's a major part of life in the state and reels in a lot of money yearly. It started over 150 years ago and has only gotten bigger and bigger. What was once a small 3-day gathering in Cincinnati has been transformed into a huge 12-day show that has over 1 million people visiting, generating about $68.5 million each year. At first, the Ohio State Fair was meant to show off the state's farming and business. It started with just a small piece of land in Cincinnati, which was surrounded by a simple 10-foot fence. But now, it's grown into a big event held at the Ohio Expo Center and State Fairgrounds. The fair gets so much visitors each year, making safety extremely important. So much so that multiple private security officers and even the Ohio State Highway Patrol are contracted to ensure things go on without a hitch. Over time, the fair became a mix of the best things Ohio has to offer, from music and sports to horse shows and food stalls. The very first fair in 1850 offered prizes of no more than $20 and silver medals worth $3, and we know that it must have been quite a big deal at that time. Now the fair has grown not just in size, but in how important it is, attracting people from all walks of life and from across the nation. But this much-loved fair has had its problems, which was highlighted on the 26th of July 2017, the very day Tyler visited with his girlfriend Kaziah Lewis. On that fateful day, Tyler Jerell woke up with the anticipation that comes with knowing you're about to have a great day. He had just enlisted in the Marine Corps, an achievement that he was so proud of, and he knew that a more challenging chapter awaited him, a chapter where he could fulfill a dream that had been stirring within him for years. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, Tyler was a people magnet. He was always upbeat and everyone loved him for it. His friends remembered him as the guy who could turn any dull moment into a memorable one, the one whose laughter was as infectious as his zest for life. He had a natural affinity for making people feel comfortable, valued, and heard. But he wasn't just into school. He had a passion for flying, and it was like his dreams were as big as the sky itself. Tyler was a guy who always had a plan, even as a teenager. Friends and family saw him as someone who knew what he wanted out of life and was willing to work hard to get it. He was diligent and committed, be it in academics or in the part-time jobs he undertook, which was where he ran into Kaziah. Tyler met his girlfriend, Kaziah, when they both worked at a McDonald's. The spark was instant, and their friendship let both of them be themselves. Kaziah saw Tyler as a guy who didn't just dream, but was ready to chase those dreams. And Tyler found in Kaziah someone who got him and laughed at his jokes, even the lame ones. He took his commitment seriously, whether it was his 3-year stint with the Franklin Heights Navy Junior Cadets or his latest decision to serve his country through the Marine Corps. Tyler had chosen one of the toughest roles, either infantry or combat engineering, because he believed that the path of greatest resistance often led to the most meaningful rewards. This was a young man who wanted to serve his nation, to contribute to its safety and well-being, while also embarking on a journey of personal and professional growth. And he wasn't just watching life go by, he was a part of it. He had his plans, his dreams, and he was shaping a life that wasn't just about making it big, but also about being happy and fulfilled. That July morning, Tyler and Kaziah headed to the Ohio State Fair, both buzzing with the excitement of being young and in love. As they wandered around the fair, it was like they had all the time in the world ahead of them, a future that seemed nothing but bright. And that's why what happened next was not just sad, but also really shocking, a total change from the life Tyler had been building. You see, he had just enlisted the Friday before with a training date set for next summer after graduation. He had spent his whole summer fixated on getting through the enlistment paperwork, and so he was really looking forward to the Ohio State Fair to unwind. It was as if the universe had conspired to gift Tyler and Kaziah the perfect day. The Ohio State Fair was in full swing, buzzing with the laughter and chatter of thousands of visitors. Despite the heat of July, there was an unmistakable air of excitement that wafted through the place, as palpable as the smell of fried dough and barbecue. It was a sprawling expanse of colors, sounds, and smells, a live kaleidoscope of human experience. There were food stalls selling everything from corn dogs to exotic international cuisines. The Ferris wheel towered in the distance, its colorful lights promising a panoramic view of the carnival world below. Games of skill and chance beckoned visitors, as did the dozens of amusement rides that ranged from the tame to the hair-raising. As they explored, Tyler and Kaziah were drawn to a mix of attractions. They threw darts at balloons, tried their hand at the ring toss, and yes, indulged in some of that classic fair food. Who could resist, right? Corn dogs, cotton candy, the works. The couple laughed, took selfies, and let the hours roll by as they navigated through the maze of experiences that the fair had to offer. As they explored the fair, they passed by Travis and Mitch Taylor, 18-year-old cousins who had been coming to the fair every year for almost a decade. Travis and Mitch were seasoned Ohio State Fair veterans, to say the least. Their favorite ride? The Fireball. They'd ridden it multiple times every year and had just disembarked from yet another whirl on their cherished attraction. Travis mentioned he had just arrived and was hungry, so they opted to grab some food before considering another go. A decision, as they would later find out, that saved their lives. The fair was made more spectacular by the presence of Amusements of America, one of the nation's leading carnival operators. Operated by Amusements of America, a company with an extensive history dating back to 1939, the Fireball was considered one of the fair's top attractions. Founded by the five Vivona brothers, the company had been a family-run affair for generations and had amassed a stellar reputation over the years. They had been listed in the Guinness Book of Records as the largest traveling amusement park in the world, and for a good reason. They knew how to deliver a memorable and, more importantly, a safe experience, or so everyone thought. Amusements of America had a spotless reputation, which made what happened next all the more unimaginable. As for the Fireball itself, it wasn't just any amusement park ride. Created by Dutch manufacturer KMG, it had been rechristened Fireball when sold in the US. Its design was akin to a pendulum, consisting of a rotating gondola at the end that would whirl riders 40 feet into the air. The thrill didn't stop there. The arm would swing, peaking at an angle of 120 degrees, practically flipping the riders upside down. And all this while, the claw-shaped wheel would rotate at a dizzying 15 revolutions per minute. If you were positioned just so, the G-forces could make it feel like you were being flung into another dimension. The ride itself was a marvel of engineering, with 4 large supports holding up a hub at the top. From that hub dangled a large swing arm, equipped with 6 gondolas attached to the ends, each able to hold 4 thrill seekers. The supports were affixed to 2 trailers containing water tanks that acted as ballast, ensuring the ride's stability. This was an attraction that had gone through rigorous checks and inspections, not just by Amusements of America, but also by the Ohio Department of Agriculture. And these inspections were done just before the accident. Trust. That's what thousands of fairgoers had in rides like Fireball. Trust in companies like Amusements of America and in state regulatory bodies. Trust that the marvelous machines they boarded would carry them aloft and bring them back safely to Earth. It was against this backdrop of confidence and anticipation that Tyler and Kaziah decided to board the Fireball that evening. But what happened next was a completely unexpected nightmare. As Tyler and Kaziah settled into their seats, eagerly securing their safety belts, The excitement in the air was almost tangible. They glanced at each other with giddy anticipation, their hearts racing in sync with the ascending crescendo of the fireball's engines. The fireball began its motion like any other time, swinging back and forth like a pendulum, each arc gaining height and momentum. Onlookers watched the towering structure come to life, its colors blurring as it picked up speed. From the ground, the ride appeared to function normally, but for those on board, a terrible realization began to dawn. Even as the ride gained speed, a jarring shift occurred. Passengers suddenly felt an unexpected and worrying shake. It's shaking real bad," Devray Williams, one of the passengers, was heard saying to her neighbor. And she wasn't alone. Others too felt the unsettling quiver. Meanwhile, Julian Bellinger, who had been waiting in line, was recording the ride on his phone when he heard shouts from the riders, pleading to slow it down because it was moving too fast. Spectators, some of whom were waiting in line for their turn on the ride, started to sense that something was off and joined in, urging the ride operator to stop. The operator, hearing the commotion and alarmed cries from below, hit the emergency brakes, but it was too late. Moments later, tragedy unraveled in slow motion but occurred within mere seconds. As the arm of the fireball swung to its left, then arced back to its right, a screech of metal on metal echoed as an entire gondola, the one holding Tyler, Kaziah, and 2 other passengers, suddenly detached from its arm. The force was too much, flinging Tyler and Kaziah out of their seats and through the air, their safety restraints proving useless at such a dire moment. They collided with another gondola across from them, plummeting their own gondola to the ground. 2 passengers still strapped in, sustaining severe injuries upon impact. The riders in the opposing gondola were struck by debris but survived with minor injuries. Kaziah suffered multiple injuries, pelvis, ankle, ribs, and would undergo multiple surgeries. But the collision was too much for Tyler Jerell's body to take. He died on impact. Within moments, the area around the fireball was pandemonium. People were running, screaming, crying. Eyewitnesses were too shocked to speak, their faces etched with disbelief and horror. Brittany Neal, standing nearby, thought she had witnessed her worst nightmare unfold. Emergency responders were on the scene almost instantly, but their efforts to resuscitate Tyler were in vain. The chilling wails of sirens mixed with the heart-rending cries of those who had witnessed a day of joy turn into a lifetime of sorrow. Travis and Mitch Taylor, who had left the ride just moments before to grab some food, stood paralyzed with fear, a terrible understanding settling in. What the hell just happened, they thought, their hearts pounding as they watched EMS teams frantically administer CPR to the fallen riders. That could have been us. Their hunger forgotten, their love for the fireball forever tainted, they joined the shocked crowd. Tearful faces and anxious voices filled the space, each person grappling with a mixture of relief and guilt that they hadn't been on the ride, and sorrow that others had not been so fortunate. Governor John Kasich would later describe it as the worst tragedy in the history of the fair, and for those who were there, who felt the unaccountable shift from elation to dread, from safety to chaos, it was a tragedy that raised questions they had never before thought to ask. What could have caused this? Who was responsible? And how could they ever trust again? Within hours, videos of the horrifying incident would circulate on social media, and soon the entire world was in frenzy. This story of fun and life corrupting into one of despair and death is tragic enough as it is, but a lot of people only ever talk about it from Tyler's perspective. However, when you take a step back and look at Kaziah's perspective, a whole new story unfolds. Kaziah Lewis should have been savoring the summer before her senior year of college. She should have been commanding a stage with her a cappella group, losing herself in the harmony and rhythm. Music was her sanctuary, a place where she felt invincible. "Music just makes me happy," she often said, a sentiment that Tyler, her boyfriend, understood and respected. Tyler Jerell was an incredible part of her life, a cornerstone in her journey. He was the kind of person who made love seem easy, his kindness echoing in every gesture, every touch, every shared laugh. "He is the most loving and caring person I've ever met," Kaziah would tell her friends. Together, they had dreams of the future, dreams that involved both of them reaching for the stars, Tyler in the military, Kaziah as a journalist. As a couple, they had been through a lot, memorable vacations, deep conversations, and the everyday magic that made life seem surreal. But perhaps what stood out the most was the shared anticipation for their trip to the Ohio State Fair. It was supposed to be their last hurrah before the summer ended, and they returned to their respective educational pursuits. A family tradition for Kaziah, the fair was a celebration of love, life, and the joys of being young. On July 26th, they went to the carnival together. Kaziah had just attended her grandfather's funeral earlier in the day, and the fair seemed like a diversion they both desperately needed. Her grandfather had served in the Air Force, and his death had left her broken. But the fair was supposed to be exciting, a night of fun and laughter. "The last thing I remember was getting the tickets to go to the fair," she said. Then came the fireball. The ride had started like any other, but something felt off, an unsettling quiver that went beyond the thrill of the ride. Kaziah felt it too, and even though she couldn't put a finger on it, her gut tightened. It wasn't just the high-speed movement. It was a shaking, a rattling that signaled something horribly wrong. The ride snapped and sent passengers tumbling onto the midway, and then disaster struck. Their gondola detached, and they were flung into the air. In that moment, as her body hurtled through the air and time seemed to stretch infinitely, Kaziah's thoughts were a tangled mess of disbelief, fear, and a profound sense of loss. She collided with another gondola, the impact jarring, before falling to the ground. Kaziah didn't realize it at the time, but she was watching her boyfriend Tyler die as they fell. When she finally woke up at the hospital, her world had shattered into a million pieces. "Where's Tyler?" was the first question she asked her mom, even before asking about her own condition. Clarissa, her mother, hesitated before telling her that Tyler had died. The news was a blow Kaziah couldn't comprehend. She had sustained multiple injuries, broken back, fractured pelvis, and much more. Yet the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional devastation of losing Tyler. While Kaziah's world had shattered, she wasn't alone in her grief and loss. 7 other people had been injured in that catastrophic failure of the fireball ride. Tamika Dunlap, Russell Franks, Jennifer Lambert, Jacob Andrews, Abdi Hakim Hussein, and a 14-year-old whose name was withheld. Some of them, like Jennifer Lambert, were listed in critical but stable condition. Representatives from Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center confirmed they were treating 3 victims, 2 in serious condition and another in critical. The aftermath of Tyler's death rippled through the community, leaving friends, family, and even acquaintances in a state of disbelief and sorrow. During the honoring ceremony held at Franklin Heights High School, where Tyler would have entered his senior year, the football field became a place of remembrance. Student athletes and ROTC members lined the 50-yard line, but it was Tyler's mother, Amber Duffield, who captured everyone's attention as she walked across, clutching a picture of her son. "Tyler was with me. My Slim, my baby," she said, escorted by one of Tyler's mentors, Captain Tom Lennon. In the stands, the crowd cheered when Tyler's name came over the loudspeaker, and a helicopter from the Columbus Division of Police flew over the field, paying tribute to a young man who was part of their Police Explorers program. A bubble release in the stands further honored Tyler's memory. "Even 3 months out, we have all this love still," said a tearful Amber Duffield. Tyler's impact wasn't confined to just his school or his community. He had already committed to serving his country. The Marine Corps confirmed that he was set to begin basic training at Parris Island, South Carolina the next June. "We are truly proud to have known him as one of the brave few willing to step up and serve his country in the United States Marine Corps," said the statement from the Marines. Tyler's ROTC instructor, retired U.S. Navy Captain Gerard Lennon, found it hard to reconcile the loss. "When he put his mind to doing something, he was really well focused," Lennon said. "It's just an absolute tragedy." And his supervisor at McDonald's described him as one of the best employees she had ever had. "He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, making sure everything was in order," she said. After the candles had burned low at the memorials and the crowds dispersed, the most haunting question remained unanswered. Tyler's father, Anthony Jerell, was among those demanding to know, how could this tragedy happen in the first place? A question so straightforward, yet its answer proved to be a labyrinth of blame, accountability, and heart-wrenching revelations. It was time to find answers. And so began the investigation that would dig deep into the marrow of the fairground culture, ride safety, and the mechanics of a disaster waiting to happen. The authorities went to work immediately, with Ohio's Chief Inspector of Amusement Ride Safety, Michael Vartarella, at the helm. But what Vartarella and his team soon discovered was that the Fireball ride, named ironically or not, had been a disaster in the making. "We inspect these rides multiple times even on the day of the accident," Vartarella said. "But here's the thing. Most of these checks were visual, looking for obvious cracks, wear, or faulty electrical work. This time, though, the devil was in the details. Or more precisely, in the hidden corrosion deep within the ride's gondola support beam, invisible to the naked eye. The ride's manufacturer, KMG, a Dutch company, had a somewhat clean slate until that point. Their Fireball rides, or afterburners, were popular at fairs worldwide. Built in 1998, the specific unit that malfunctioned at the Ohio State Fair had seemed safe, on paper at least. But here's where it gets chilling. A former employee of Amusements of America, the company running the fair's rides, spoke anonymously to local media. "I've seen it rock. I've seen issues with the Fireball before," the former worker said. Despite this, the Fireball had passed all previous inspections, both by the Ohio Department of Agriculture and Amusements of America. This led the community, and especially families of the victims, to ask, were these checks comprehensive enough? Barry Schabel, an inspector with a company hired by the California State Fair, opined, "These machines are not always as stable as they seem." In fact, he revealed that rides like the Fireball are often temporarily mounted and weighted down with water and wooden blocks. Makes you think twice about the aggressive thrill ride description on Amusements of America's website, doesn't it? Governor John Kasich pledged a thorough investigation and even hinted that the findings could impact regulations at fairs and amusement parks across the country. "It's a very, very sad night for all of us, but we have to get to the bottom of this," he solemnly declared. The days rolled by slowly as investigators from the Consumer Product Safety Commission took over, corroborating what everyone had feared. The cause of the accident was indeed excess corrosion within the gondola support beam, a problem that had been festering, out of sight, getting worse each time the ride was disassembled and reassembled for transport. By the end of it all, lawsuits were filed, and Amusements of America took full responsibility, settling for undisclosed amounts. While this tragedy has instigated a ripple effect of change, including ride shutdowns in California and Canada, the sad truth is, nothing can rewind time and bring Tyler back. Nothing can fully heal the injured or completely mend broken families. However, this devastating chapter has raised alarms far and wide about the true cost of a thrill, prompting us all to question and scrutinize what we often take for granted. It's a lesson soaked in sorrow and regret, a lesson learned the hardest way possible. And as the world moves on, it's a lesson that must never be forgotten. In the wake of this unimaginable tragedy, questions and blame swirled like an ill wind. The courtroom became the stage for an emotionally charged drama, with everyone from ride operators to inspectors, parents to policymakers, vying for their version of the truth to be accepted. It all started with a series of lawsuits against Amusements of America and the ride's Dutch manufacturer, KMG. The defense teams argued vigorously, trotting out inspection records and expert testimonies. They showed that on paper, everything seemed above board. Even Michael Vartarella, Ohio's chief inspector of amusement ride safety, had reiterated in court that the Fireball had passed multiple inspections before the fair opened. However, Tyler's father, Anthony Jerell, shot back with a question that echoed in the courtroom. Who is responsible for not doing their job of inspecting the rides? The testimonies were heart-wrenching and shocking. A former employee of Amusements of America testified anonymously, repeating what he had told local media. The Fireball had problems in the past. "I would not put my own children on these rides after what I've seen with the years of being there," he declared. KMG issued an urgent warning to operators around the world to cease the operation of similar rides. And though the Fireball had not claimed lives before, that didn't make the grief and sorrow any lighter to bear. The damage to KMG's reputation was profound, as was the blow to Amusements of America. The fair and amusement ride industry felt the ripples strongly, as fairs across the nation rethought their safety measures. It was around this time that something remarkable happened. A piece of legislation, named Tyler's Law in honor of Tyler Jerell, began to gain traction. Spearheaded by lawmakers who were appalled by the lapses in ride safety, The bill aimed to overhaul the inspection and oversight process of amusement rides. Not everyone was on board, though. Critics argued that the new regulations would be too cumbersome, possibly even leading to the demise of smaller fairs and events. But supporters countered that if Tyler's law could prevent even one more tragedy, it would be worth it. After a contentious debate, the bill was eventually signed into law, giving Tyler a bittersweet legacy. Sometimes we naively put our trust in the idea that someone, somewhere, has made sure that our pursuit of a simple thrill won't cost us our lives. This tragedy painfully reminds us that this isn't always the case. As the world keeps spinning, it's crucial we remember the true cost of a thrill, the importance of stringent oversight, and the legacies of those like Tyler, who paid the ultimate price. On the other hand, Kaziah was finding her voice again. Through months of surgeries and rehabilitation, Kaziah was met with doubters who thought she would never recover. But she found strength in the memories of Tyler, her mom's unwavering support, and the music that had always been her escape. Finish for Tyler 2018, read the bracelet that she wore as a constant reminder of the love and dreams she had lost, but also the dreams she had yet to fulfill. No, life was not easy for Kaziah, yet she kept fighting, her spirit resilient in the face of everything that had happened. Mentally and emotionally, I'm ready to go back to the way things were before, she admitted, but physically it's kind of holding me back. As she grappled with her new reality, Kaziah understood that the pain was her cross to bear, a heavy load that nevertheless couldn't erase her dreams or memories. And in those moments when her strength waned, she remembered Tyler, their love, and the life they had dreamt of building together. In the wake of that life-altering day at the Ohio State Fair, Kaziah and her family became advocates for greater safety measures at amusement parks. They couldn't change what had happened, but maybe they could prevent other families from experiencing such devastating loss. As Kaziah put it, everything you do affects someone, especially when you have a really important job. You have to think, and you have to be cautious and careful of others. So here's the thing: no legislation, no lawsuit, and no amount of money can turn back the clock. But what we can do is remember and learn, to question and scrutinize what we often take for granted, ensuring that this hard-earned lesson isn't forgotten. Because as we seek the next thrill, it's not just our own lives we're risking, it's also the lives of those who get on the ride after us.